Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome esteemed educators for today's webinar on empowering informed decisions for future success. We appreciate your efforts in transforming your school into a hub of future ready leaders through focused career guidance. By prioritizing career counseling, you're not just guiding students towards success, but also cementing your institution's reputation as a pioneer in holistic education. Before we begin, let me introduce Singhania Education Services. Established in 2020 and mentored by Dr. Revati Srinivasan, this organization is dedicated to redefining K-10 education. By focusing on academic excellence and holistic growth, we aim to equip students with skills and values that prepare them for academics and life. This year, we've raised the bar with our Career Navigator initiative. This program aims to prepare students for their dream careers and explore global opportunities. Imagine your alumni thriving at top universities worldwide. That's the future we want to create together. Today's session is packed with insights from distinguished speakers and industry leaders, and we hope it empowers you to take the steps towards integrating comprehensive career guidance. Let's dive in and make the most of this session. For that, first we have Dr. Brijesh Karya, our moderator for this session. We are thrilled to welcome Sir, who's the COO of Singhania Education Services, who's also the education innovator. With over 22 years of experience, Dr. Brijesh Karya is a trailblazer in education and technology integration, impacting 300 plus schools and 1.5 lakh plus students. A celebrated speaker and recipient of multiple global awards, including Times Education Icons and Edupreneur of the Year, he's dedicated to reshaping education through his innovation and leadership. Now, let's welcome our esteemed panelists. First, we have Mr. Hiten Shah, who's the founder of Grad Guide, who's also a career coach. With 20 plus years of experience in education, Mr. Hiten Shah has guided 2,000 plus students and collaborated with top schools and universities to enhance career and college planning. He's passionate about empowering students through personalized guidance. Next up, we have Ms. Felicity Innes, Director of Learning and Teaching at International College, Portsmouth, England. She's a higher education expert with 20 years of experience in academic advising, curriculum development, and lecturer management. She specializes in intercultural communication, fostering inclusivity, and enhancing educational quality in diverse global learning environments. Next up, we have Ms. Mala Mary Martina, joining in from Bengaluru, a serial entrepreneur and founder of I Love Mondays and teeninterns.com. As a TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and teen mentor, she's dedicated to empowering the youth and guiding them to discover fulfilling careers. And last but definitely not the least, Ms. Bulbul Chaudhary, Pro Vice Chancellor at Atlas Skilltech University, Mumbai. She's a gold medalist from NIFT and a passionate advocate for design education. She's been inspiring students for over 25 years with her innovative approach to creativity and design. We are thrilled to have such accomplished panel with us today. So we have Dr. Brijesh Karya and Mr. Hiten Shah with us in the studio. And we have other panelists joining us from the rest of the country. Let's give them a huge round of applause, a virtual round of applause to welcome them. And we're very excited to hear their perspectives during the panel discussion. So let's begin. Now, I invite Dr. Karya to lead us through this engaging panel discussion with our esteemed speakers. Over to you, Dr. Karya.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for that wonderful introduction of all the panelists. So first and foremost, I welcome the lovely panel here. I'm sure we're going to having some amazing insights today. So just sharing my journey, as an educator, I've been teaching for the last 22 years, Hiten. And I've been traveling across the country. My job is to visit 500 to 1,000 schools in a year. And every year, one thing that I notice, which is very common, which is not changed till now, be it students, parents, or principals, and that is how do I select the right career? There's no specific formula to it, right? If there's a student he's confused, if I'm good in math and science, do I take science mandatorily? For example, let's share it. I was speaking to a student recently, and he was excellent at math and science. His name was Rohan. So I told him, what are your plans? He said, sir, everybody has made an assumption I'm going to be taking engineering because I'm good at math and science. But I want to do photography, or I want to do something in design, sir. Right? So how do I solve this conundrum? Then I spoke to their parents. They said, no, just because the neighbor's son is doing science, let my son also do science as well. And then finally, the principles. One thing that I'm noticing about India, and very happy about it, India is getting inspirational by the day. Especially tier 2, 3, 4 cities, the more you travel in the in depths of India, you find that principals are getting aspirational by the day, and they want their children to study in the best national as well as international universities. But unfortunately, they don't have the right connects, they don't know the right people, or they don't know the right processes sometimes, even if they know the people. For example, simple fund of, how do I do an application to a foreign university? So there are lots of questions that I have today. I'm sure we'll try to cover with this amazing panel of stalwarts who have spent their life, dedicated life, in making students build some fantastic careers. So warm welcome to all the panelists. Looking forward to having a great interaction with all of you. Hitin, I'd like to start with you, right? I was just speaking about students and parents. So according to you, what are the key challenges that they face while taking a decision? For example, many decisions are so dynamic. Now, when I look at my daughter personally, she's in grade 6 now. When she was in grade 4, she said, I want to be a doctor. And she was in grade 5, she said, now I want to be a lawyer. And she was in grade 6, now she's currently on her entrepreneur pursuit. So I'm sure by the time she comes to grade 10, there'll be 10 more options that will be on her table.
Yes.
So what are those key challenges that you foresee that students and parents face while deciding upon a career? Because I think that's the most important phase to begin with.
Right. So thank you, Brijesh, for that. And I think, when we talk about challenges, let's not look at challenges in generic, right? There are student specific challenges, there are parent specific challenges. And, if we try to address each party individually, and then there are some shared challenges among themselves, right? For student today, if we see information overload, right? And how do you channelize the information, and how do you ensure that you're sending out the right info to the students? Because a lot of ChatGPT, Gemini, Meta, all of these platforms are being utilized by the students aggressively,
Right.
to understand how do I apply, what career options should I look at, right? Whether those career options which are being informed by these platforms, are they really, existing or not existing? That's one of the things which I come across when I'm interacting with students.
Sure.
That they have the information, but this is all half information.
Right.
Right now, we have, Ms. Bulbul and Felicity both representing universities, and I'm sure one of the key things which usually a student would ask is, as you rightly mentioned, the subjects that I've taken. I want to get into design, I want to get into architecture, but I have not taken some of the key subjects which would allow me to even apply to those courses.
Absolutely.
Right. So how does a school work towards ensuring that at the right age, you're guiding them in choosing the right subject? It starts with all choosing the right subjects.
Perfect.
I am a commerce graduate, and I can tell you that, nobody told me that you should be taking math because it opens up more opportunities.
Right.
And that is one of the student challenge again, right? Career options in itself, what majors, what minors can I pick up, right? Which university should I apply to? We look at rankings, but we'll also have to ensure that we are not looking just the rankings, but the faculty, who is teaching, how are they teaching, right? Is the institution known for research or not research? Today, when we talk about some of the psychology programs which are being offered by universities, they are coming up with AI models, they are creating psychological labs inside the institution we never heard of.
Agreed.
It's very important for a student to have all of that information segregated and compartmentalized in the way that they can consume that information in the right way.
Absolutely.
For parent, again, yes, parents are completely disconnected with the whole higher education space. They feel that what is important for a student is to first get your scores right. And then we will talk what you want to do in life.
Right.
It's too late by then. Because if your scores are not great, and then you just ultimately decide that okay, you can get into commerce or arts. Science is not meant for you. That's how careers are designed or defined for a child.
Right.
And that's where they start regretting later in life, and we see hundreds of examples in our own country and worldwide. Maybe they started their career journeys in something else, and today they are successful by doing something else.
Right.
Right? They started the journey. They became founders of organization. We have seen people writing books and making a career out of that as well. And these are people who went to IITs.
Right.
There is no harm in doing that. Pursuing your career and passion together, if you're able to be successful about it, then why not?
Absolutely.
Parents have different set of challenges. They have to manage the financial things. They are not communicating at home with their own kids. They don't know what the kids want to do. The parents have a different aspiration in life that, okay, I could not do this. I want my
Child
child to do this. Right? I could not become this. I want my child to become this. Having open communication inside your drawing room or inside the bedroom is very important, again, to address those challenges. And I think as a school leader, it's very important that in your parent teacher meeting, you address some of these things, at least bring it or make it as a part of the conversation, and let the parent and the child have that open discussion. Our job is to ensure that we create the bridge and not become part of the decision making process.
Absolutely.
And financial, obviously, it's end of the day, it's the parent's pocket which is going to pay the fees.
Right.
So having that discussion early on helps you to plan financially towards your higher education journey as well. You're not dependent only on scholarships all the time. Right? Not everybody in the world would get a scholarship. Right? There are some brilliant students who do get scholarships, and yes, it can take care of certain element of your education. It can't take care of your entire education journey. I believe these are definite some challenges that needs to be addressed very openly, not to shy out of it. It's very, very crucial these days to have this discussion.
Fair enough. So I think some key takeaways for our audience, very, very important. First is selection of right subjects at the right age and at the right time is very, very important. Having right conversations with your students and planning well in advance. Yes. And one important thing that I could take out from what you were saying, Hiten, having a mentor is so important in this whole process.
Yes.
For example, I've seen so many Indian parents saying, no, I want to send my child to the US for studies.
Yes.
Where in US, which university, what subject, that they say we don't have any idea.
Yes.
So it's just a dream sometimes which doesn't fructify in reality.
Correct.
Because of the gaps that you just mentioned.
Yes.
Right?
7,000 universities for a student to select from.
Absolutely. So when you spoke about selection of subjects, I want to turn my attention to the Indian schools now, and we have an audience of so many principals joining us right now and listening to us. So it's very, very pertinent to them, the next questions that I'm going to ask. I'm going to split the next question between Mala and Bulbul from a global perspective as well as an Indian perspective, right? So it's very important when parents, unfortunately in India, parents feel academics is equal to marks.
Correct.
Or a good career is equal to good marks, which is usually not the case, right? Because universities have a different expectation when they are doing the intake of students. They want good, well-rounded individuals who are good across various fields or specialize in something like a music, sport, art, dance, something of the other. They are certified in certain courses apart from academics, right? So how do schools align these experiences, or how do students align their school's experiences with the expectations of these universities? So first I'm talking about global universities. Mala, I come to you. How do Indian school students align their expectations in line with the global universities' expectations?
Thank you so much. I think that's a very important question, and it can be answered quite simply, right? It's not like rocket science. In education, we use an approach called near to far. Start with what's around you and then connect the dots to the larger picture or the bigger picture. So usually we encourage students, and I'm sure school leaders and teachers and counselors already do this in school. Maybe we just need to do it more consistently and kind of drive home the point. The idea is to ask children to answer basic questions instead of asking them which career you want to choose and what you want to do for the rest of your life, which is a far-fetched question. At grade 7 and 8, we ask them questions like, hey, what are your interests? What are you willing to spend time and effort on without external motivation? Right? If there were problems around you that you wish to solve, what do you think you could do? What would you want to be known for? Simple questions that children are able to relate to. And then just answering these questions and connecting the dots. For example, we'll get amazing answers. Somebody might say that they really care about having a very positive mindset, right? And they could come up with a podcast on positive affirmations for teenagers. So that in itself is a project work that can add to your portfolio. So it's really simple action steps. And in the process of actually building that podcast, they are actually building on skills. And I love what you said, like scores and knowledge, right? Which was relevant at one point because we lived in the knowledge economy. Now we live in the skills economy. And I'm sure everybody on this panel will kind of validate that, right? It's what I can do versus what I know. Again, Hiten said there's an information overload, right? We don't need humans to have a lot of information. I mean, except relevant information, like make the right career choice, start early, and all of that. But it's really not about having a lot of information. It's about having relevant information and starting from the near to the far approach. So that's my.
I think that gives us a very, very nice perspective. Sometimes we end up overcomplicating things, thinking too much. But as you very correctly said, Mala, if we keep things simple, I think things more often than not give us a clear picture of where we want to head or which direction we want to take. So thank you so much for that perspective, Mala. Moving to Ms. Bulbul, same question to you from an Indian perspective, just to share a small context here. I mean, few years back, it was difficult to imagine international standard universities in India. So I must first and foremost congratulate all of you for setting up the Atlas Skill Tech University and doing such a wonderful job of honing children's careers and making sure that the aspirational India has a new avenue to come to Mumbai and make up their fantastic career for themselves. So the same question, how do the schools align their expectations, or how do the students in a school align their expectation from an Indian context, from an Indian university perspective? Bulbul, if you can add some perspective to that.
Sure. Great. But thank you so much for the question. And my thoughts are all over the place, but I'm going to try and articulate it. Am I audible first and foremost?
Yes, thank you so much.
And the more I think about it, and I've just spent 2 days in a school in Varanasi, and having traveled from Mumbai with a certain thought process, I was completely zapped and amazed at what I saw over 2 days, right? The bonds of friendship between the teachers and the students, a sense of agency, not just amongst starting from the gatekeeper to the teachers and what percolates to the students. A sense of national pride, which is so tangible. And I just sat back and I thought to myself, for all we may say, I am a great believer of the fact that India got where it got because of our school system. It is easy to say that, our life was what it was and there was no internet and we had only two career choices. The truth is India turned around in a certain, the last decade of the previous century because of liberalization. So if parents said, hey, listen, let's become doctors and engineers, clearly, those were the careers we saw, right? When you look around, if I go back to the place where I grew up, which is Dehradun, I think people were either chartered accountants, lawyers, doctors, or engineers. I don't think any of us knew about another career, right? There was no such thing as Google. And if you wanted to go to Delhi University, you knew somebody was studying in a certain college, right? And that was the way to get information. And you sort of took a meeting with the person when she would come on a holiday, etc. And I think that built a certain muscle in many of us to just get there, not be reluctant, ask questions, which maybe today I find the students are a little more reluctant. Why ask? I'll find out, figure out for myself, etc. Right? So I think I am a believer of, the Indian education system. And the more I think about it, I think we really got where we got. For all the people you see world over, as managing directors of the Microsofts and the Googles and everything else, it couldn't have happened if it weren't for our school system, right? I think colleges, on the contrary, and universities took much longer because there weren't that many great institutions of excellence to go and study in. And I think to that extent, the great brain drain may have happened because you have a such brilliant, bright student who went through a very rigorous curriculum. And I'd like to believe that this rigorous curriculum is a very Asian thing. The other day I was reading about a certain exam that happens in South Korea, and apparently it's one of the most complex exams to take in the world.
Right.
So the schools have done a set of things right? Whether it was building certain muscles that can only be built during school years, right? To keep you undistracted, right? To keep that phone out of the classroom, right? Where else can you do it, right? Can't do it at workplaces, can't do it anywhere else. So building a certain amount of rigor, building a collaborative, synergies, building critical thinking skills, sometimes without even labeling them as such. And because if it weren't for those, if it were only for academic reasons, people wouldn't have gotten where they've gotten, right? It's not that suddenly you see such a spate of sharks and people coming to shark. That muscle already existed. The platform was not available, and the minute that platform was available, you see it's like the seeds were always there, the soil wasn't. The minute the seed found the soil, it tended to sprout. So I think what the schools have really done this far, I personally believe, is brilliant. I also sometimes feel that, and this is my thought, and I mean, we can agree to disagree, that I don't know whether there is a need to fuss too much about careers when in school, right? A school is meant to be a certain place for you to become the man you will become for the rest of your life, right? So, and the ability for human beings to make a choice is both a human strength, because only human beings have been given the ability to make a choice. There's nothing else on the world that can make a choice, right? And which is why choice, I think, is the biggest strength God has given us. It's also our biggest dilemma, right? And this dilemma will continue. It is never going to end, right? First, the dilemma will be like Hitan said, maths no ki nahi no, right? But it's not going to end over there, right? Let's say the biggest dilemma that students may have when they come to a university is, hey, listen, creative versus uh, like, let's say, a design or something creative versus more a road more travel, let's say like doctors, engineers, whatever. Okay, let's do design. Then the parent could also ask me, hey, listen, design or fine arts, right? Okay, fair. Let's say design, product design or interior design, right? Okay, let's say product design, industrial design or user experience. So that dilemma is going to continue, and that is a journey. That's what makes the journey so beautiful as well, right? Because there are no answers, right? And the answer is an exploration that you call life, and you will figure out for yourself. But I think certain things, the ability to be able to withstand, how to navigate ambiguity, right? Because life is going to be ambiguous. How to create a sense of belonging in a school, that every time you create, how to truly build collaboration, right? And not compete, because even doing little things like, hey, giving a prize to one is also like saying, hey, listen, someone else didn't deserve it, right? You have created competition without knowing it sometimes. So I think the role of schools is really to build those muscles which can be built over those 10 years. In fact, when Shruti started out, she said K10, because I think those are the most formative years of a person's life. Because come 11th and 12th, anyway, of course, we start asking young people very early about what they want to do in life. And back then they'll say, hey, I want to be a pilot. All boys say, I want to be a pilot. Girls normally say, I want to be a teacher. And I'm not sure what happens over a period of time. These aspirations transform to other things as well, which is great, right? But I do think that schools, I am a big fan of the Indian education system. All of us here are here for what we went through. Uh, as far as universities are concerned, I do think schools world over in our country, and more, not just first year and second year, in fact, more sometimes in the second and the third year, because distractions are fewer, are putting the amount of effort they're putting in giving the parents and students awareness about what they should and should not consider. No longer is tier 2 city gullible. They in fact evaluate the decisions even more carefully sometimes, because they have maybe fewer resources. So university guidance or even soft skills training programs, training teachers to be able to become better mentors. See, mentors is not when you assign someone to become a mentor. You never know who impacts our lives and when, right? Most of the times, the best mentors of our lives were those who didn't sign up to be our mentors, right? A teacher could be your mentor, your art teacher, your PT teacher could be your mentor, right? So, enabling the teachers to become enablers for students to be able to spot strengths that can be worked upon, because these strengths will emerge when you're sometimes in those moments when they're not being evaluated. So I think teachers training, summer school opportunities that are being given to students, working with universities, our outreach arm more or less is working towards making student teachers and schools more enabled to be able to do the work they're already doing, right? And I think all of that together makes it a great case for us as a university. Are in Mumbai, but over about 70% of our students come from cities across the country. Of course, Mumbai is a wonderful city to move from this journey of professional education to a professional life. And there's so much you learn inside of the classroom as you learn outside of the classroom. So I'm indebted to every single school and every single principal and every single counselor and teacher for the wonderful students that we have, and for all of us, for the teachers we had as well. Right. So I think I can go on this, but I leave it at that.
Bulbul, for adding so many different perspectives. So one thing that is validated, which I also very strongly and firmly believe, that yes, Indian education system is at the right place, the right time, with the right people heading it. However, adding a lot of skills, like you said, soft skills, 21st century skills, will help students make these choices better. So I think that was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Bulbul, for adding a variety of perspectives on this. So moving to Felicity. Felicity, right now, first and foremost, let me tell you, I'm very, very jealous of the background picture that you've got right now. I wish I was at a beach somewhere and asking these questions, really.
Pleasure.
Right. So Felicity, coming to you, I've seen so many students apply to many foreign universities, sometimes, first time application, first generation learners, parents not aware, how do I fill a form, students not aware, and then they usually, send many a times end up making a mistake. So as an experienced career guidance navigator, so what are the gaps that you have seen when students do these applications, and how can schools address these at a very basic stage so that when the students do the applications, they don't face much hassle when they actually apply? What's your take on that?
Firstly, thank you, and glad to be here. If it's any consolation, my background doesn't look like the one that is behind me right now. It's actually not that good. What I've seen, I think, is, and I completely agree with both the other panelists here, that it's not about knowledge anymore. Yes, applications have to be ranked and looked at in order to get a place in university, wherever that university might be. But for me, when I'm looking at cases where maybe they haven't quite reached where they would want to reach their grades wise, I look at that and think, okay, let me look at what their subjects are. And I look at that and think, okay, clearly that subject area is not your forte. Maybe that's not what you want. But you know what? I can see what subjects you're really excelling in. And I know those skills, we can use those. And we can use those skills to get you wherever you need to be. In the years I've been in education, looking at students, the biggest challenge I think students face, and the same with their parents, is that they are scared of making a mistake. They're scared that they have to make a choice at 16, 17. And what do we know at 16 or 17? We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what we want to be. 10 years later, you'll be a completely different person. For me, I was very stubborn as a high school student. And I said, no, I can't do maths. Maths, I can't do. I still don't like maths. And I said, okay, so I'm going to make sure there's a career that I do that doesn't have maths in it. So I studied and worked as a travel agent for a year. For a year that I worked at it, I realized very quickly, oh no, this isn't where I want to be at all. Then I was lost. I was this lost 20-year-old wandering around, what do I do with my life? And the one piece of advice I've never ever forgotten, my father told me, he said, go to university. And I'm like, what for? What am I going to study at university? I don't know what to do. He said, no, go to university. You will learn how to think. So I kept quiet, but in my head, I'm going, that's the stupidest piece of advice I've ever heard. What do you mean, learn how to think? I know how to think. 3 months in university, I went, oh, that's what you meant. Because a university experience and that further after school, you're there, you're learning your facts, you're giving your facts in your exam at the end of the year, and you're graded on it. And that's what we judge you on, what universities judge you on. And that's not right, to be honest, because you're being graded on what you can remember. And I don't know about anyone else, but I sometimes forget what I had yesterday for lunch. So that's not a good thing to test people on. But I think what is important is to encourage students and their parents that it's okay to not be sure. It's not a problem, because take a variety of things. But like both panelists have said before now, follow your passion, follow what you love. It doesn't have to be all of your subjects, but if you absolutely love music, take music and then add other subjects to it. Then do your geography or your biology or whatever the case might be. Because when I am looking at applications from students and what their grades are, I look at that and I see, okay, these are the areas I can see we need to support you with because you struggled a little bit. I don't know exactly where. We'll work on that when we meet you. That's fine. But I can see you have skills. If I have, I've had students in our classroom that I go in to support in various ways. In a law classroom, I had students and I had feedback from their lecturers that they were really struggling with the reading, knowing how much they had to read and all that kind of thing. So I went in and I said to them, okay, who reads a lot? Nobody put their hand up. So and then does anybody do you read? One person put their hand up and said, no, I don't like reading law journals. I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't care about law journals. I'm not asking you if you read law journals in your spare time. Do you like to read Harry Potter? Do you like to read whatever? And they went, oh, a few more people put their hand up. I'm like, okay. Now, can you tell me, give me a little bit of a description about what you last read? And they look at me. I'm like, just tell me, if you were telling your friend to watch this movie or read this book, what would you tell them about it? Oh, I'm like, okay, so you say it's about a boy who's a wizard and he goes and he learns some skills and he fights a bad guy and he makes great friends. And I know. So I said, so I just did a critique and a summary, which is what you have to do in the classroom. It just happened to be on Harry Potter, not on law. You've still got the skills. And they all went and went, oh, there we go. So it's tapping into that knowledge and going, you know what, you've got the skills there. It doesn't mean you need to know the ins and outs of law from India to Japan to the United States, that you don't need that. You just need to know how to get those skills. So what I would, you spoke about a gap that I see. It's not so much a gap, more of a need, I think, for parents and students to ask questions and to say they don't know what they're doing. So come and tell me, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. How can you help me? And I'll go, fine, let's sit down. Let's have a conversation about what you like, what you want. And they said, the biggest risk I see quite often is when parents choose a degree program for their children. They come in, they fail most of their studies, and we talk to them, and I call them and I say, what's going on? What are you doing? I know you can do. I hate law or I hate engineering. I want to be an architect. I'm like, okay, fine. But my parents said I had to do this. I'm like, okay. So it's a different type of conversation, but at the end of the day, no student is going to sit through hours of study in a subject that they don't like. I don't want to do that. So a student won't either. So I think, as we've heard, in the past, you were going to be, and I grew up as well. You were an engineer or a doctor or a fireman or a teacher, and I'm an anthropologist. So I ended my degree going, do I work in KFC or McDonald's? I don't know. And I've made my way to where I am. But I have a variety of skills and things that I've learned in that time. So the biggest thing is find that mentor, find that person who can guide you. That person won't have all the answers, and that's okay. But they can direct you. So direct them to the right people who can give the information they need and break it down. So if they want to be studying design, let's face it, if a student goes back to their parent and says, I want to be a designer, if my child came to me and said that before I knew more, I'd be like, what is that? You want to be an artist? You're never going to make any money. What's going on? I don't understand what that means. So I need someone to break it down and go, these are the jobs you can do. These are the areas of where you can go to. And I'd be, oh, okay. Ideally, what you want is to get information from the universities, colleges that anyone's looking at, and give examples of final year projects that they do, because that gives real insight to what they can do with their degree. My last point was when I had a group of lecturers from the University of Portsmouth that I was talking to, and one of them was the head of physics. And he said to me at the end, he says, how can we get more students studying physics? And I just looked at him and I went, what? That's quite a specialized area. Honestly, I didn't really know. Beyond nuclear physics, what do you do with physics? very soon after, I thought, okay, I'd better find this out because what are we going to do now? I got a final year project that some students did was how to make the perfect cup of coffee using physics. And I was like, oh, brilliant. So you need to break it down into, and it's not that people are stupid, it's just that it's complicated. You can't know it all. So break it down into something that's day to day that can speak to you and the parents so that we can advise accordingly. But most important thing is ask questions, find the people who can give you the answers, to give you the variety, and follow what you love, what you enjoy, because you'll give up otherwise.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Felicity, for those wonderful thoughts. I think the common perspective that I can see from all the panelists, one thing is find the right mentor who can guide you and get the information from the right set of people. I think that's very, very important. Felicity, I wish I had met you a few years back when I was a student. I would have definitely taken music, and maybe I would have been busking on the streets of London somewhere right now. Yeah. So now I've got a long list of questions, but I'm seeing that we are having more than 120 educators online right now, and I'm sure they'll be having a lot of questions. So in the meanwhile, while the team gets the set of questions ready, which I will ask Hiten to do, lead the Q&A. So what I could conclude from setting a context perspective is very simple. Indian education system, has undergone 4 phases. Like we talk about Industry 4.0, I've seen Indian education 4.0 as well. The first phase was the Gurukul system where you had one-on-one mentorship and lots of emphasis was given on learning values.
Yes.
Right? Then the British came in and the knowledge component became very important. You need to have knowledge of English to get a better graduation degree and get a job for yourself. Then post-independence, I think skills became very important. And finally, today's life is right attitude. You may not have certain requisite set of skills right now, but with the right attitude, you can definitely acquire and build those skills for yourselves and make a fantastic career. And that's why we are seeing so many college dropouts today building billion-dollar businesses. Or somebody who was not good at studies today is actually excelling in his university life because he's found the right pursuit or the right passion for himself. Right? So I think I have to first and foremost thank all the panelists for those wonderful, wonderful, lovely answers. And now you're going to be getting a lot of questions from the audience. So please brace yourselves. I'll just hand it over back to Shruti to lead the conversation further.
Thank you, Dr. Karya, and all the panelists. Such an enriching discussion, such varied perspectives. So as Dr. Karya mentioned, we will be moving on to the Q&A round. But before that, we would like to take a quick poll, which will be displayed on your screens soon. So please take a moment to kind of share your thoughts and answer the questions that are there on the poll. And we'll be getting 20 seconds to answer those questions. If you can look at your screens, there'll be 3 questions displayed, and we'd love to get your inputs. And the results will be displayed on the screen. So kindly give your responses, answer it.
So Hiten, what do you think is for example, I was in Patiala last time. I had a 8th standard student coming up to me and saying, sir, I'm preparing for my IIT. Which one is better, IIT Bombay or IIT Madras? I mean, you must be meeting so many young students. What's your take when you meet youngsters, especially grade 6, 7, 8, when they start first thinking about their career? How do you tackle those situations? I'm very interested in knowing that.
So yeah, I mean, when you mentioned Patiala, immediately it struck. I have a student from Chandigarh. He's in grade 10 right now. And look at the irony, right? He's planning to get into MIT, right? And at the same time, also looking to drop out from the school and get into an integrated school to look at backup options as IIT.
Wow.
So, and this is something which is coming from the parents. They're so pushing, they're so pushy when it comes to that. No, we want him to start with the integrated school. What if MIT doesn't happen? I think, Brijesh, one of the key things which people need to understand that MIT is not the end of the world.
Absolutely.
Right? Getting into MIT and what you do after that degree is what really matters in this world. Irrespective of the institution, what a person you are, no institution is going to change that.
Right.
It's very crucial to get that, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and then you come into the next stage of life when you start thinking and hearing about careers.
Right.
To get them to understand that it's okay. You don't have to think, because every 6 to 9 months, your passion, your interest will change,
Right.
which is happening today, right? Your ideals change in life. there is so much of external influence in the world,
Right.
right? There is so much of bias from your own family, society that you live into.
Perfect.
That you want to be an engineer, so you look at them and look at you, right?
Right.
So it's okay to be not doing that. Be unconventional at times. It's okay.
Right. So if I were to summarize it, Hiten, I think grade 8, 9, 10 are more about discovering yourself.
Yes.
What are your talents? What are your interests? Rather than jumping upon the career. I think Mala mentioned that, Bulbul mentioned that very correctly. That when the right time comes,
Yeah.
it will find a way. I think 11th and 12th should be more about university selection,
Correct.
career selection. That's when those 2 years you take it up a little seriously.
Yes.
With the right mentor, you'll be able to arrive at a good university with a good choice of your subjects.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for adding that. Back to you, Shruti.
Yes, thank you, sir. I hope everybody has filled in the poll, like registered their responses, and let's take a look at what shows up in the results. All right, so we have, yeah, so it looks like majority of you feel that it's very important that we have these kind of discussions, we have guidance for career, especially at a young age, and that's why thank you so much for your responses. We really require this. We know now that all of us, most of us, are on the same page. So let's open the floor for your questions now. You can type your questions in the Q&A section, and yeah, we'll answer them one by one.
So Hiten, if you can just lead the Q&A very quickly.
Yeah. I think how this is in question basically, to both Bulbul and Felicity. How do you think that schools can collaborate along with universities, right, in creating a much better environment of giving information to them and also helping them to understand, what kind of careers, what kind of courses, what programs are there, how and what it leads into ultimately in life. So one of the key things which I find is the collaboration between the school ecosystem and the higher education ecosystem. What are your suggestions or thoughts on that?
In terms of, I think it's important for students who are not sure when they're young. I mean, they're young. If they're not sure what to do, choosing something that will have a lot of options, a lot of pathways and avenues to follow is probably your best starting point. But these days, you can pick almost any subject, and there will be a multitude of avenues that they can pursue. So I think the most important thing is to focus on the skills that they will build, which is not always apparent when you just choose the degree, because then you think, I will end up with this degree. And what skills are there within that? So it's to break it down and look at some of the learning outcomes that are said to be included in that degree. That gives the insight. But also again, reach out and say, okay, once they've got that degree, what can they do with it? Within that, including the option for students to follow what they're interested in. So it's a tricky one to ask, but the more information you have as to what they're interested in, the more you can guide accordingly. And when the parents come in with the comment or the guidance, the push that they want students to end with X, the more information that can be provided with what the options are and where they can go with that, the easier it is, because you can't know all the answers, of course. So asking the questions and having a discussion is probably the best start.
Thank you so much, Felicity. Yeah, Bulbul.
So if I got your question right, did it say that what is it that schools and universities could do together?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. And while I was listening to Hiten, completely agree. I think the younger there's this one thing called childhood, right? It's not coming back. So
Right.
it must be lived when it must be lived. Then to just plan to go to MIT, that'll also happen. But
Yeah.
but I think a
But
childhood
at the
is so
right
much
time.
about exploring and just I mean, there's a school of thought which is to say that just let them be until a certain point, and they will learn by themselves. And teach them all the arts and the creative skills early on, because everyone was born creative anyway. It's only when we grow up our creative confidence begins to deplete, and soon enough we begin to say, you know what, I can't even make a straight line. No child ever said that, right? In fact, you had to stop them with, and take away the crayons, otherwise the whole house was a riot. So I think creative confidence is something that when we begin to look at our work as against someone else, you begin to believe you can't even make a straight line. No child ever, however, said that. It's actually a very primordial, even the caveman did it back when the resources were so much more limited. But coming to what could universities and schools do together? I think there's a lot of learning through observation. It's a great idea both for parents and for students whenever they find pockets of time to visit places, right? And I'm not saying you want to just start going to universities to start with. Maybe when the child is younger and you can begin to see streaks, right? Uh, we are blessed that in creative careers, the streaks are visible quite easily, right? Where they start to spend time doing creative work, doodling, sketching, making anime and things like that. Spend time which are creative environments. Go and spend a summer vacation, maybe, or a winter break in an Auroville. Go to Pondicherry. Go to select your places where something is available for them to see, which is not otherwise available within your four walls. And I think the other thing I'm a big fan of is do things which are not part of the plan, right? For instance, there are these wonderful places, and I'm talking about until 10th, and then we quickly talk about 11th and 12th. And I've always advised parents when they say, how can I spend the summer break for my child? I tell them, A, come for summer schools to universities like ours, but also there are these places called, I don't know how many of, I'm sure a lot of our education community would know about it. There's a place called the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute in Darjeeling, and they do a variety of courses. There's the Nehru Institute of Mountaineering in Uttarakhand. Just learning to camp by yourself, climbing that mountain together, doing a night out, pitching your tent yourself, making that Maggie and lighting your fire yourself can teach you a variety of life skills. And the truth is, you're never going to have the time to do it again. In real life, you will have a vacation, but you're not going to pitch your own tent. You're not going to a mountaineering institute because you may not get the time. There are people who find time. So I think all of that is the beauty of, until you're in 10th and 11th, and it should not cease, right? We continue to find beauty in life, but coming to 11th and 12th, visit universities, spend time. Don't just do a flying visit, right? It may be a good idea to actually for schools. In fact, a lot of schools reach out to us and say, can we use your hostel facility? And there are always a few, a little bit of accommodation available, but otherwise when you come during summer break, a lot more is available. But even if parents make a visit to the university, interact with teachers, spend time, talk to students, right? Because there's no better way to learn than from peer to peer. You must see how young people talk to, immediate seniors, for instance. Felicity said, look at the projects they do, right? Look at their work, because you will know whether I want to do something like this or I don't want to do something like this. So visiting, meeting people, talk to practitioners who are already in the profession. We do a lot of boot camps. We actually do a day at Atlas where we have parents, students, educators, teachers, thought leaders come and actually spend maybe a day, 2 days at a stretch and just explore what university life is like. How do students navigate around the city? What is it that Bombay offers? Or what is it that Atlas offers? What is the journey of a student like? So doing these boot camps alongside in a very fun way, right? It doesn't, yeah. And university's responsibility is to build those experiences, moments of fantasies, if I may say. So attend boot camps, visit universities, talk to young people, formally, informally, attend workshops and boot camps at and a lot of universities today are organizing and curating these experiences for students. Do skill workshops, spend time in the laboratory. You may not make a full piece of furniture, but you can just sort of dabble and get your hands, fold your sleeves, and just use a little bit of one of the tools to know what making feels like, right? I remember one of the times I went to Royal College of Art in the UK, rated as one of the top universities, and I was dumbfounded when the first question the professor asked me, when was the last time you made something with your own hands, right? And it took me a moment, right, to be able to respond, right, despite being a design professor. So do those things, and I think the answers will begin to reveal, right? And of course, time is a limited resource. So while you're visiting a city like Mumbai, you could do a visit 2 or 3 places, and of course, some bit of research goes prior. In what are the universities that you've shortlisted? Just looking at website, talking to people, having conversations with counselors, and all of that. I mean, these are just some of the things that come to my mind straight off. There could be so much else as well.
On a lighter note, Hiten, we are talking about beaches, mountains, camping. Maggie, I think all panelists are going to be hungry by the time the panel ends for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Felicity and Bulbul, for that. I think, yeah, this industry is all about collaborating, right? Shaking hands together and, getting the students on the right track. I mean, I would not say right track. I would say it's like, you're aiming for an Olympics. You don't know whether you're going to win it or not, but you have to win those small battles on the way. And that's what the life is all about. Mana, for you, a follow-up question, what resources or tools do you think, right, that are available today for students when it comes to exploring internships, right, when it comes to exploring global opportunities, and how can they utilize those in, as Bulbul mentioned, right, time is definitely very critical. When you're talking about, you just have 9 to 10 months of academic at the school, and then you're left with 2 3 months of vacation and all the other things which are there. What do you think the student should look at?
I think this is such a fantastic question and so close to my heart. So recently, one of the parents from, we'd worked with this boy, I think when he was in grade 8 and now he's in grade 11. He studies at an international school and they came to me with a very simple, honest question, which is, do I send my child to this country or the other country? I mean, they were concerned parents, it was an honest question, etc. So I asked them one question. How do you manage your finances? Do you take all of the money and put it like in one basket? And obviously, we know this, we don't put all our eggs in one basket, right? So I think even when it comes to exploration or profile building, talking about resources and tools, I would recommend anywhere between 3 and 5 options that, parents and students can work together or schools can work together in helping their children kind of explore and build their profile. Number one could just be a hobby tool, right? And hobbies are fun things to do, right? So you don't really need to motivate your child. I love what Bulbul says. She's all about passion, right? She's all about experiences. So one is a hobby tool. The second bracket or the second basket that you put your eggs into is skill development tools, right? The fastest way to build skills is through an internship. That's what we've seen over the last 12 years. We've seen, and this is not just like tangible technical skills, but also in terms of personality. I think the biggest challenge that this generation is facing and will continue to face is resilience, lack of it, right? How do we build grit and resilience? So one of the mandates that we have when it comes to internships is you have to finish what you start, whether you like it or not. Right? Again, Bulbul mentioned about the Indian education system having rigor. I'm such a fan. Thank you so much, Bulbul, for mentioning that, because I think that's why we don't let them give up and give that choice at such a young age when they're not at that ability to make that choice, right? Where they would
And that's why I
probably
said
take
mountaineering, because when you climb the mountain, you might as well get to the summit. You don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So hobbies could be one bracket or resources and tools. Second would be skill development. It could be through internships, volunteering work. Again, let's take the near to far approach, right? You don't have to get an internship at a Google. I mean, let's take it one step at a time. Can you go to like the bakery near your house and like just run some errands? It could be as simple as that, right? So number one, hobbies. Number two, skill development. Number three could just be passion projects. This again is something that I picked up from one of our students. He just wants to have fun and do a project which he's passionate about, right? So he created a comic books on a comic strip series on anthropology, actually, for children. And that was pretty cool. So that's the third bracket. Another one could be summer programs. Great way to explore universities, explore yourself, figure out if that's the country that's kind of suited for you, out of your comfort zone. So that could be another fourth tool. So there are a dime a dozen ways to do this. Again, the essential point to note is not to do everything at the same time. and nobody can do that, I think, but ideally to take it one step at a time. Like from nature, right? We have seasons for a reason. There's a season to hustle, there's a season to like relax, there's a season to probably focus on just two areas. So there's a season for everything, which is where I think counselors like you, Hiten, and your team are able to kind of build that roadmap for students so that they can pace themselves out, and we don't set them up for failure, but we set them up for success. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Bala. And I think it's, yes, it's very important to look life in stages, right? We had midlife crisis on a lighter note, and now we have midlife career crisis as well, right? And so for students, I think it's, I see everything as an F1 race, that 2 seconds and 5 seconds of pit stop, which a driver has to take, right? And the entire team is working towards getting the driver to come first or to win the race is so critical and so important. It's not just a one-man army that you can capture the world and win everything in the world. It's a team, or people around you are going to make you successful. You know, I think Bulbul and Felicity, would you mind to share a case study, right, specifically of a successful, I would say not really successful, it may be not successful, where because you meet a lot of schools who are engaging with parents, right? And one of the key stakeholder of a school is a student and a parent and a teacher community. But when you see how do they empower parents and make transformative decisions, any schools that you have come across who have spoken about it openly, or any case study that you can share with the larger audience here?
And my mind is just racing because many of the times, Hitan, when we interact with schools, these are interactions while mostly with students. But yes, there's one that comes straight off, and I'm sure there are so many other ways in which parents are being
Right.
engaged with. We engage. If I may take the liberty of talking about how we engage with parents even before the students on board, is we actually invite on Zoom these days, we invite all the questions they may have. And trust me, the nature of question varies from at the stage at which the child is. When they apply, they are different. When they have to take a decision, when it is different. And when they have to finally make the journey to Mumbai, it is very, very different. And in a way, we sort of know those questions. These are regarding everything from scholarships to fee to, let's say, hostel life to club activities, etc. And I think to have a very open conversation with the parents and not consider some question as lesser useful than the other, right? Uh, I mean, sometimes there's a reason why the parent is asking the question, right? And it is not for us to say, all right, this is a more important question or that's a lesser important question. But I think what we found very useful is bringing all the parents together. I mean, maybe 50 parents on Zoom at one time, and we do a series of these hits. And sometimes we've done it for months together. Sometimes we've done it for 4 months together. And in fact, there's so much we learn in the process, right? And interestingly, sometimes the different questions the parents ask and students can be very different, or they could be very similar. In fact, this is a parent forum. Children, of course, don't often ask questions while the parents are there. They have different type of questions sometimes. So, and we respond to each of those. And a lot of these questions, in answering these, parents learn from one another. In fact, I've heard parents say, "Hey, I didn't think of that one." Right. So that is something that we call open days, and we've been doing it for all of these years. We do it for all our programs in design, in business, in our technology programs, especially how does this multidisciplinarity pan out? What are these electives? Can my child do this and do this? And if they did that, how does it add up in that journey? And we showed them examples. We actually show them examples of student journeys as well, from when they started, the internships they went through, how those internships add up to eventual placement, how does that eventual placement add up to 3 years down the line, right? In fact, I was just talking to one of my colleagues, one of my students who's just put a LinkedIn post saying that she is now got herself a job at Google in the US. Now, see, it didn't just happen, right? There's just so much that went back, right? Go back. That year one, she didn't know what course she wanted to do. So now we'll get her on the Zoom. And here is when we call all the parents and the students as well. But coming back to your question, which is, and by the way, it gives you a sense of confidence because you realize that well, Google will happen one day. She was as uncertain at one point in time, like all of us. when we have to make those decisions. So, but I can think of a school in Indore where they decided to do a program called Dialogues on Design. And they invited not just their own children, they invited not just all of the parent community, but they also were generous enough to invite all other schools of the city, right? And we took with us a couple of successful designers. When I say success, it depends on how you define success. I'm not saying these were the celebrity designers, but these were people who had made huge, impactful, scalable design products or services that not just changed many things in India, but also world over. I remember we had Mihir Shah, one of the people who brought out a product called Eye Breast Examination, which is the world's cheapest breast examination design product for early detection of cancer amongst women. And they spoke, people like him and a few others, they spoke about their journeys. And that's what made us shift for the parents and saying, hey, design is not just what we thought it is, right? Here are designers who are working in the space of design with technology into creating breakthrough products for countries like India, and not just India, world over, where healthcare is such a priority item for government, for individuals, for people, for communities. So I think the shift happens when you have conversations with parents, right? And an open conversation. So I find this was a large format, but it's not the first time that we've done this for only one school. I mean, I was just thinking about, because there's so many various big and small events. A day at Atlas is also as much for parents as it is for the students. But the dialogues and design for me was one of the very powerful tools that schools began to offer, where industry, academia, parent, teacher all came together into one room and had this conversation.
Thank you so much, Bulbul. That I think a lot of schools would want to, start thinking in terms of engaging their parents and not just the PTA kind of a thing, but have some meaningful discussions, have some meaningful conversations as well. It's not just the students will learn. I'm sure,
Absolutely.
parents will also learn so much more than what we know. Felicity, your inputs on this.
Um, I think the same thing. There's so many different things that go on in different formats, small and large, exactly have been spoken about. The one, and as the conversation was going on, I was like, oh yes, and that one, and the different things. The one I think of right now is they're all linked together, no matter whether they're small or large, because the most important thing I've found with both students and parents and the schools is building that relationship of trust and comfort. Because if they don't feel that they can approach or ask or whatever the case might be, you've already failed, I think. There needs to be some trust in there some way. The one example I had was it was probably a few years ago now. I was visiting a school in the United States, and it was just with the parents. The students' children weren't there at the time, and what I've seen, and I've seen since with smaller meetings, one to one as well, is essentially while the parents are looking for career, is this going to take my child somewhere where they will be a success and be able to provide, etc. The other is that they are just sitting there going, so as an international study provider, I would say, is my child going to cope? Are they going to be okay? I worry about my child in the house, let alone thousands of miles away. And I found personally, humor is probably the best approach I always take if I can make everybody laugh as a performer in a way. You've already started bridging the gap a little bit because you're saying, I'm a human being. You just tell me what you're scared of, what you're worried about. And I have had a meeting with a parent a few days ago of a student from Tanzania who came in and he had his list of questions and he was just, my daughter's never been away from home. We pick her up, we drop her off, that she's in the secure bubble, which is fine. It does raise some questions on resilience that have come up before, which I think we need to build. But that's a separate issue. But the main thing he wanted to know, same with those parents in the United States, was, is my child going to be looked after? Are they going to be looked after like I look after my child? And if the answer is yes, you've already dealt with a big concern. So that's one of the biggest things. The same online forums as well. Those are equally really good. They, as have been said already, they questions that you don't think about or asked by somebody else, and that's really valuable. So I think it's building that trust, building a relationship, but also between a provider, whatever that provider looks like, whether it's a university or a college or whatever it is, having that relationship with the school as well, or at least having an open ability to have the relationship is important. One example I have, which came to mind, was a couple of different schools in Latin America at the moment. And we said to them, what do you want? What do you want your children to be exposed to? What are you looking for? So they came back and went, I don't know. Had a few conversations, a few options. We said, okay, how about a summer program, summer camp, as has been said, touching on these areas, a whole lot of fun, some little sports games, a little bit of education just to give a little bit about what it will be like. What subjects do you think will work? I am under no illusions that I am not going to meet the expectations of a 15-year-old, because they'll say, I want to do this, and I'll just look at them. I probably won't even understand the words that they used. So you've got to be in touch with the people who know what they want to experience, have fun with. So while my aim is, let's get them into a lecture on history, that would be wonderful. No child is going to want that. So it's having that relationship with the schools as well to say, what do you want? What do you want to see? What do you want your students to experience? What can we do with you? What can we work together on? And if you can do that as well, you're building the relationship both with the school and the parents, and the students are going, okay, this was fun, or that was awful. I never want to do that subject ever again, whatever it might be.
Thank you so much, Felicity and Bulbul. I think it's so important, right, for a school to start having that discussion. And I really like the idea. Sometimes the school would not just know what to do, right? What kind of an engagement would work. I think it's very important that they should start interacting and figure it out with by having those conversations with the universities.
Right.
That this is what my audience looks like, and you can come out with couple of things which we can actually implement in the school to engage with parents. And I think I'm sure with that kind of an engagement, parents will have a lot more clarity in terms of not only just the institutions but what the world outside is today.
Agreed.
Because I am a strong believer of one thing, that you're getting into a college, that does not tell you that you become an engineer tomorrow,
Right.
or you become a doctor already. Your journey has just started. There is 6 years of education left before you actually become that person.
Right.
And maybe the world has changed by then. You can't blame yourself or the university by saying that, I did this course, it's no longer relevant. Right? That's how the world is moving, and I think the pace is at that scale. We have one question as well. So it says, as a school, we already have a career counselor who works with students very closely. So would that still address every requirement of a student? And so I can, answer this, because when I work with schools and there are counselors in the schools, right? So I believe that the way technology got implemented, Brijesh, this, you can resonate with this as well. 20 years back, when e-learning or the edtech industry started in India, everybody was scared that technology ultimately will replace the teacher inside the classroom.
Right.
It didn't happen in last 20 years. I don't see it happening in next 20 years as well. Right. Similarly, if you already have a counselor, I don't feel that taking in additional support from an external person, external institution, there's no harm in it.
Right.
Right. Because one counselor cannot have 2-3 rounds of counseling session with 200 students in a year.
Absolutely.
So when we do the mathematics, we know maths are behind it. We know that one counselor cannot cater to 200 students' need. Every student has a different mindset. Their thought process is different, right? They might have a question at 12 in the night. They have to wait till their turn will come next 3 months time frame. And that question is never being asked. That's one of the key, that's very dangerous, of those questions not being asked or not coming out, in the larger audience.
Sure.
I believe it's very important to collaborate. I mean, whether it is the university, and I'm sure, Bulbul and Felicity both here They have an excellent team in the back end as well, right? Why not engage their teams? If you have a question very specific to an institution or just generic about a career, which these institutions are supporting as well, throw that question to them. Let your student engage.
Sure.
Don't worry that your student will not be taken care of, which Felicity very clearly mentioned that security is one of the key questions which comes out very openly from the parents. And don't worry about the security.
Right.
The child is in a secure environment already. Let them ask those questions if they have at the time when they have that question.
Absolutely.
Rather than killing that question completely. And I see that, in EdTech we have seen, Brijesh, you are in, an example, you meet 300 schools in a year, right? And we have seen the days when technology was not there in 300 schools in India. And today we see that every school is tech enabled in the country. What do you think? Would this really make a difference of having an external person to support?
It definitely does, because when I speak to principals about, let's say, technology, the initial fear was, will this technology replace my teacher? So I always tell them that in India, unfortunately, people think there's a choice between this or that. So that's why I tell them you require a change in mindset. It has to be this and that. Why can't teachers use technology and make it transformational? Right. So similarly, there's a school counselor which is available. Unfortunately, what I've seen in smaller cities, especially in India, their exposure is very limited. So even if the school has a counselor, he doesn't have good connects with some top international or national universities of the country. So that is when, if they get an external mentor or an external help or support who will bring those universities to that campus, either virtually or physically, give that exposure to students that these are the kind of courses available in the world or in India, and this is how you can go about making your career, and this is the path that you have to follow in the next 2 to 3 years. I think that's a fantastic value add that any school can get. And believe you me, there are schools waiting out there for such opportunities. But as I said in the beginning, two things: who are the right people that we connect with? That is one question, because there's no exposure. And second, once we've connected with the people, what is the process of aligning with those people?
Yeah.
So I think if we answer these two questions well, majority schools in India want to take this up very, very seriously, because as I told you, India is aspirational. We are at the right place at the right time. People want to make fantastic careers for themselves. I mean, imagine 20 years back when Bulbul was saying opportunities were limited, still Indians have made it big abroad.
Yeah.
So with right exposure, right knowledge, great universities, imagine what more we can achieve. So yes, that external help with the schools will definitely go a long mile with it. That's what I believe.
I think, thank you so much, Brijesh, for that as well, right? And Bulbul, you have been visiting. I know when I look at Bulbul's calendar, it's always packed. She does 200 plus sessions every year in all parts of the country, right? And Bulbul, so what do you think, right? Is taking an external help a taboo in this country, that we have always looked, why should I ask for help? Or is it okay now these days when you're engaging with schools where they feel that it's okay, we don't mind people coming into our campus with additional support? You become an extended family of the school ultimately. What are your views on this?
You seek help, reach out wherever you can, isn't it? I mean, like I said, sometimes a stranger you met on the has told you something that changes your perspective. I think we are living in an absolutely, other than the fact that we are geographically divided, I think that technology has made the world one level playing field, right? And maybe politically fractured and divided, but I do think technology is really level the world, right? So where is the question of not reaching out, asking, the more the merrier, because you'll get diverse perspectives. And then I'll go back to where I started, from the power of choice, because you will also know which perspective adds up to your theory and which doesn't add up, right? To have just one template is never going to work. It never worked. And I think today, anyway, whether you like it or not, Hiten, and I like it or not, the fact is the students they have so many inputs from so many quarters, we don't even know what they are, right? So I think while there is, of course, I mean, the question goes back to whether a counselor can handle it all. Well, I wonder, how can a counselor even know about every single career that exists? They can be,
Correct.
they can help you navigate. It's really a journey that you say, hey, let's find this out together. I know a little bit about this, but I don't know a lot about something else. So the more the merrier. In fact, I mean, this you're learning all the time. I mean, I've learned so much listening to all of you today, right? I'm an external person most of the time when I go to universities. But why are they kind enough to invite us? Because we bring in a perspective that is not already available to them. Right. So by all means, I'm completely agree with you, Ethan, that not just one or two more people outside, reach out to the world, right? And so far as for people like us who go to 200 or whatever number of universities, the truth is, it is we end up actually receiving a lot more than we probably give. So it is in giving that you receive, as they say. So learning happens both ways. If you ask me what young people are thinking, it's only because the schools are so kind to let us give us a platform to interact where we learn as much as we share with them. So, absolutely, let's go all out, not just from within the country. Resources are available across the world. I'm learning from what Felicity is saying today, or what, what Mary was saying earlier, and of course from yourself. So, similarly, I think the students have to have access to as much as possible.
Thank you, Bulbul, for that. And I think if we don't have more questions, just one last thing which I would want to, to address to the audience is
Sure.
that ultimately what we all are saying is that, the world is available, yeah, right, at your fingertips. You have the information. You don't even need to reach out these days, right? You just drop a message and you will have 10 people responding to your query. That's how, we are connected in this industry. That's how we are all connected. Don't shy away. Don't think that things will change, what your parents will say, what your students will say,
Right.
what your teachers will think. Nobody is here to replace anybody. I can't be a teacher, I can't be a teacher. It's as simple as that, right? And we are here to support your institutions. The ultimate goal is we want to live in the world where our own students, right, who are 18, 17-year olds today, when they grow old at 40 years, they are the ones who are going to take care of us.
Right.
We are not going to be taking care of them at that point in time. So better leave the world in the right hands.
Absolutely.
Right? By giving them the right opportunity, by giving them the right options to live with. And let's not force anything on anyone. We don't like, why would our children like being forced into something or to do something? That's something that I would want to, end the conversation with.
Yeah, in fact, due to paucity of time, I'm sure we are not able to take all questions. I would request the backend team to drop in our email ID at the chat at the end
Yeah.
of the seminar. So once with the questions that were left unanswered, we will talk to these experts and try to get back to you. So over to you, Shruti, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for this engaging and insightful Q&A session with our attendees, experts. It was truly riveting. We encourage all participants to actively implement the career guidance program in your schools at the earliest, because that's something that's been mentioned, to start as early as possible, figure out what skills, what hobbies, what interests are most crucial and most important. So, with some university deadlines approaching, it's crucial to ensure your students don't miss out on valuable opportunities as well. And that's why, to further support the program, we have something special. So we have a special webinar for parents on December 14th, 2024. And the session will help them understand the importance of career guidance and how it can unlock the child's potential. So we encourage you to invite parents to register without delay and take advantage of this really great opportunity. To make it convenient, we've shared the registration link as well for the parent orientation webinar in the chat box. So please do save it and share it with your parent community. This is your chance to empower students' careers journey and set them on a path to success. So the Career Navigator program emphasizes on these aspects which will help students prepare and make themselves ready for their future path. So feel free to contact us for any additional details through the email ID mentioned on the screen, or contact us in case of any query. On behalf of Singhania Education and Career Navigator, thank you for joining us today. Let's continue collaborating to shape brighter futures for your students. Wishing you all a wonderful evening. Thank you so much once again, and thank you.